There's a very specific moment. It's not dramatic. It's not the kind of thing you'd tell someone and expect them to understand how heavy it feels. It's too small for that. You finish something, maybe an email, maybe a task that's been sitting in your head for days, maybe a conversation you rehearsed over and over before having it. And when it's done, when it's finally done, you expect to feel something good, some relief, some lightness. But what comes isn't lightness. What comes is this tight kind of emptiness, a feeling in your chest that isn't exactly pain, but isn't peace either. It's like you crossed a finish line and realized the line wasn't really there. Stay with me. By the end, this will make sense in your body. Before any explanation, before any words about what this means or where it comes from, I want you to notice something very simple right now, in this moment. How is your jaw? You don't have to answer out loud, just notice. Is it loose, or are your teeth pressing together just a little? A tension so quiet you didn't even know it was there until now. And your shoulders, where are they? Resting by your side, or slightly lifted like they're waiting for something to happen. This is where this video begins, not in your mind, in your body. I could start by talking about psychology, about mental patterns and how the mind works, but anyone who's lived this feeling knows it doesn't start as a thought. It starts as pressure, as shallow breathing, as a physical state that's already there before you even have time to think. And that's why this won't be a fast video. I need you to know that from the beginning. This is a slow journey, not because I don't respect your time, but because what we're exploring can't be understood on the surface. It has to be felt, recognized layer by layer, the way real things are recognized. So if you need to pause, pause. If you need to breathe, breathe. This isn't going anywhere without you. I want to tell you about Mariana. She's 31. She works in project management at a mid-sized company. It's not glamorous, but she's good at what she does. People around her know it. Her boss knows it. She gets positive feedback often enough that from the outside, anyone would say she's doing well. But Mariana can't feel that. And when I say can't feel, I don't mean she's ungrateful or flawed or lacking something. I mean something much more literal, much more physical. When someone compliments her work, there's a moment and a fraction of a second when something in her chest tightens, not soften, tightens, as if the compliment were a disguised threat, as if accepting it was somehow unsafe in a way she can't explain. She smiles, says thank you, adds something like still lots to improve, in a tone that sounds completely natural, and then she moves on. But the tightness stays. One Tuesday morning, she wakes up at 6:47. Her alarm is set for 7, but she was already awake. She almost always wakes up before the alarm, not because she's disciplined, because her body stays on alert even during sleep. Like fully resting is a luxury her system still doesn't allow. She lies in bed for a few minutes, not resting, scanning. She doesn't know she's doing it. It happens so fast, so automatically, it just feels like waking up. But her body is checking if something is urgent, checking if she forgot anything, checking if it's safe enough for the day to begin. The answer is almost never a full yes. It's usually something like maybe, but stay alert. She gets up, goes to the bathroom, looks at herself in the mirror for less than 3 seconds, a habit she developed without realizing it, because looking longer would start something she doesn't want to trigger first thing in the morning. Her jaw is slightly tight, her shoulders slightly raised, her breathing short, enough to function, not enough to soften anything. She makes coffee, eats something small, opens her laptop before she's even finished eating because there's a 9 a.m. meeting and she needs to review the material she prepared last night. The material is good. She spent 2.5 hours on it, but when she opens the file and starts reading, something happens in her stomach, a small contraction, like her stomach knows before her mind does that something in there isn't perfect enough. She rereads the first slide, reads it again, changes one word, changes it back, changes it again. The material is essentially the same, but her stomach doesn't relax. The meeting goes well, objectively very well. People ask questions. She answers clearly. The project moves forward. Her boss ends the call with, "Great work, Mariana." She closes her laptop and just sits there, looking at the wall for maybe 20 seconds, waiting to feel something. The great work stayed on the surface. It didn't land. It was like pouring water into a glass with a hole at the bottom. It goes in, but it doesn't stay. She feels the compliment for a moment, and then comes the thought right behind it. I could have prepared slide 3 better. And suddenly slide 3 fills all the space. The compliment disappears. Slide 3 stays. Have you felt that? It doesn't have to be at work. It could be after a conversation with someone you love, when you spend hours replaying something you said, wondering if it came out wrong. It could be a tiny decision, what to order, which route to take, what reply to send, where the choice is already made, but your body still isn't convinced it was the right one. Is there something you did recently that's still sitting inside you like that? It doesn't have to be big. Sometimes it's so small, you'd feel embarrassed admitting you're still thinking about it. That's exactly where we are right now. Mariana eats lunch alone most days, not because she doesn't have co-workers, because lunch alone is the only time she doesn't have to manage how she's showing up. She can choose slowly, look out the window, exist without being evaluated, or at least that's what she thinks. Because even alone, sitting there with her plate, there's a voice that stays with her. A presence she's never named, but that's always there, quietly reviewing her day with standards that never feel fully met. The meeting went well, but you hesitated on that question. You took too long to reply to that email. You still haven't started tomorrow's report. Her food gets a little cold while she sits in that state. It's not obvious anxiety, not panic. It's something more ordinary and more constant than that. A baseline state, a quiet background feeling of not quite enough that colors the whole day in a faint gray tone. She finishes eating, washes her plate, goes back to her desk, and starts again. At night, she tries to relax. She lies on the couch, opens her phone, scrolls for 15 minutes without really seeing anything. Her body is lying down, but it isn't resting. There's tension in her back, pressure behind her eyes, a subtle restlessness in her legs that can't find a fully comfortable position. She thinks about meditating. She's tried before, but every time she does, the quiet makes the thoughts come faster, not slower. Like silence is an empty stage they rush to fill. So she doesn't meditate. She watches something instead, anything, something that holds her attention, just enough to quiet that inner voice for a few hours. At 11:30, she goes to bed. It takes time to fall asleep, and when she finally does, her body keeps that same alert state I described earlier. The next morning, the alarm rings at 7, but she was already awake. This isn't weakness. I need you to really hear that. Not as comfort, but as fact. What Mariana carries, what you might be carrying too, isn't a character flaw. It isn't ingratitude. It isn't self-pity. It's a trained system. A system that learned somewhere along the way that being on alert was safer than relaxing. That reviewing was safer than trusting. That praise could be taken away, but mistakes stayed. This system has logic, and at some point in life that logic made perfect sense. That's what we're going to explore together, slowly, carefully, the way something like this deserves to be explored. Mariana was 8 years old when she learned that doing well wasn't enough. No one sat her down and said those words. It was much quieter than that, much more ordinary, and because of that, much deeper. It was the kind of learning that doesn't go through the mind. It goes through the body. It settles in the shoulders, in the jaw, in the way someone breathes. She remembers one afternoon. She had made a drawing at school, spent most of recess finishing it because she wanted it to look good. It wasn't even an assignment, just a free activity, but she cared about it. Layered colors, little details along the edges, a sky with a soft gradient she'd discovered by accident and felt proud of. She came home holding the drawing, showed it to her mother. Her mother looked, really looked, and said, "It's beautiful, but this part here is a little crooked, right?" It wasn't cruel. It was said in the tone of someone helping, someone who wanted her daughter to improve, someone who believed pointing out what could be better was a form of care, and maybe it was. But what Mariana's body registered in that moment wasn't the intention. It was the sequence. The "it's beautiful" that lasted 1 second, and the "but" that lasted the rest of the afternoon. She looked back at the drawing, and the crooked part was the only thing she could see. These things don't arrive all at once. They come in layers. One afternoon here, a correction there, a silence in the moment you expected approval, a passing comment that echoes for days, and the body learns. not consciously. The body doesn't decide the way the mind does. It adjusts. It recalibrates its baseline state. It slowly raises the level of alert. It develops an automatic response for the moment something is finished, shown, shared. Over time, that response becomes, wait, check first, because the but might be coming. Mariana doesn't know this in words, but her body knows it in sensations. That's why her boss's praise didn't land, not because she can't receive it, but because her system learned to keep a protective layer between praise and her heart, like a sheet of clear glass. You can see the compliment on the other side, but you can't quite touch it. She's 31 now. The pattern is more sophisticated, but it's essentially the same. Whenever she delivers a project, there's a period she lives in afterward, a suspended state between sending the work and receiving feedback. Her body stays slightly tight, slightly braced, quietly waiting for the moment that will reveal where she got it wrong. Sometimes the feedback comes back with no but at all, only praise. And in those moments, instead of relaxing, her system does something strange. It looks for the but on its own. It reviews internally, finds the weak spot the other person didn't mention, and uses that instead, as if the absence of criticism were suspicious, as if full approval were a trap. One Wednesday, 3 weeks before what I'm about to tell you, Mariana delivered the biggest report of the quarter. It took 4 days. She rebuilt the structure twice, checked the data 3 times, sent it to a trusted colleague for feedback. The colleague said it was excellent, and then Mariana reviewed it again before finally sending it. Her boss replied the same day. Flawless report, Mariana. Best one this quarter. She read the message, stared at the screen for a few seconds, and then thought, I should have included the comparative analysis from last year's second semester. She spent the rest of the afternoon thinking about that, an analysis no one asked for, not in the scope, not necessary for the report, but in her mind, it became proof that the work wasn't complete. What was happening in her body wasn't overreacting. It was an alarm, not the kind you hear, the kind you feel, a quiet internal activation her nervous system had learned to keep on at a low, constant level, like an emergency light that never fully turns off. That alarm has a purpose, and this part matters, because when you understand the purpose, your relationship to it changes. The alarm isn't trying to hurt Mariana, it's trying to protect her. It learned long ago that danger came from not checking enough, that the but arrived when she let her guard down, that relaxing was what came right before disappointment, so it never fully switches off. It stays there, doing its job, keeping her ready, keeping her reviewing, keeping her one step ahead of the but that might be coming. The problem is, an alarm that never turns off isn't protection, it's exhaustion. Think about this for a moment. A fire alarm exists to warn you when there's fire. It's useful, it saves lives. But imagine a fire alarm that goes off not only when there's fire, but when there's anything that could possibly, in some distant scenario, be related to fire. Summer heat, steam from a shower, a birthday candle. You can't ignore that alarm, you don't dare, because what if this time it's real? So you live in a constant state of responding to it, checking, scanning, never fully sure there isn't a fire somewhere. That's what happens in the nervous system of someone who learned that danger comes from not being enough. The alarm starts going off not only when there's an actual mistake, but when there's the possibility of one, when approval hasn't been confirmed, when there's silence where praise should be, when there is praise, but maybe not enough of it. The threshold drops so low that almost anything triggers the system, and the body pays the price. Mariana feels that price in her neck. There's a tension she carries there for as long as she can remember. She went to physical therapy last year because of it. The therapist said it was posture, gave her exercises. They helped a little, but the tension came back because it wasn't posture, it was state. She feels it in her sleep too. She sleeps. Her body goes through the motions of sleeping, but a certain depth of rest never fully arrives. There's a thinness to it, a surface level quality that leaves her waking up up tired even after 8 hours in bed, and she feels it in her stomach, that quiet contraction that shows up before presentations, before difficult conversations, before any moment where she will be seen and evaluated. Sometimes it appears even when no one will evaluate her. Sometimes it appears for no clear reason in the middle of an ordinary afternoon, because by now, her system doesn't need an external trigger. It learned to sustain itself. There is a name for this. Not a clinical name, a human one. Mariana didn't get here because she's weak. She got here because, at some point in her life, this alert state was the smartest thing her system could do. It was adaptation. It was emotional survival disguised as perfectionism. And the same system that was intelligent enough to create that adaptation is now exhausted from maintaining it. There's something living inside this pattern. Something that learned it wasn't safe to exist without constant review. That being fully seen was risky, that approval was temporary, and criticism was permanent. That part has a name, and when something has a name, it loses some of its power, but that name will come at the right moment. Before that, I need you to feel one more thing with her. One Friday night, Mariana went out with a friend. She likes this friend, one of the few people she feels relatively at ease with. They sat at a simple bar, ordered drinks, and talked for hours. At some point, her friend said, "You know, everyone really admires you, right? You're the most competent person I know." Mariana smiled, said, "Wow, that's an exaggeration," and changed the subject. Later, driving home alone, she thought about that sentence, not with warmth, with a kind of analytical distance, like the words were about someone else, and she was trying to understand why that other person had been described that way. The most competent person I know. She tried to feel that in her chest. There was nothing there, only a thought. She doesn't really see me. If she did, she'd know where I fall short. Then the thought faded. She turned on music, drove home, prepared for the next day. Have you ever pushed a compliment away like that, not out loud, internally? You received it, thanked the person, and then quietly found a reason why it couldn't be fully true. If you have, you know this state. And maybe you know the exhaustion that comes with it. Not the tiredness of working too much, the other kind, the tiredness of never arriving, of always moving toward a place that seems to step back each time you get close. That exhaustion is real, and it has an origin. The shadow has a name, and when something has a name, it loses some of its power. In Mariana's case, the name isn't perfectionism. That word gets used too much. It's become a label, almost a disguised compliment. Oh, my problem is I'm a perfectionist. No, the real name is more intimate than that, more honest, and a little more frightening to admit. The name is the one who is never enough, not as an accusation, as a description, a part that learned to operate this way, a part that absorbed so deeply the idea that approval is temporary and criticism is permanent, that it started arriving before any outside criticism could. It became the voice that does the work of the but before anyone else has to. It didn't appear out of nowhere. It was built slowly, brick by brick, afternoon by afternoon, and for a long time, it was necessary. It pushed Mariana to work harder when she needed to. It made her double-check when checking mattered. It helped her keep high standards when those standards protected her. It was an emotional survival strategy that worked. The problem is, survival strategies don't know when the danger has passed. The one who is never enough operates with a simple, devastating logic. It believes that if Mariana stops watching herself, her flaws will show and everyone will see them. It believes the approval she has now is fragile, built on performance, not on something solid and lasting. It believes that relaxing is what happens right before the fall, so it never lets her arrive. Not because it's cruel, because it's afraid. And this is the point that changes everything when you really feel it. The shadow is not your enemy. The shadow is the most frightened part of you, doing the best it can with what it learned. The one who is never enough is not trying to make Mariana suffer. It's trying to keep her safe. It just learned a long time ago that safety and enoughness couldn't exist at the same time, that you were only safe if you kept proving yourself. And that belief lives in the body, not in the mind. In the body, there's an archetype that lives on the opposite side of this shadow. I won't call it the perfect version of Mariana. There is no perfect version. That's not what we're building here. This archetype has a name too, the one who has already arrived. Not arrived at some final state of perfection or enlightenment, arrived in a simpler sense. She can sometimes, not always, sometimes, receive what is real without immediately looking for the flaw. The one who has already arrived still makes mistakes, still turns in imperfect work sometimes, still has days when slide 3 could have been better, but she can hold a compliment long enough for it to actually touch her body before she discards it. She can sit with approval without instantly searching for why she doesn't deserve it, and that difference, which seems small, changes physiology completely. When you can receive something positive, really receive it, let it in, feel it in your chest, your nervous system gets a clear signal, you're safe right now. It can soften, it can breathe deeper, but when every positive signal is blocked before it enters, the nervous system never receives that message and it stays on alert, without visible danger, permanently. Here is the central trap, the one that keeps the cycle turning, the one hidden inside the title of this video, the one Mariana lived with for years, without seeing clearly. Every time the alarm goes off, every time the one who is never enough takes over, Mariana responds in the only way that makes sense to her. She works harder, she reviews more, she tries to prove, through effort and action, that this time it's enough, and sometimes it works, for a moment. She delivers the project after checking it 3 times and feels brief relief, but that relief isn't peace. It's just the alarm turned down for a few hours. Because the alarm wasn't turned off, it was temporarily satisfied, and an alarm that learns that more effort makes it quiet doesn't disappear. It grows. It learns to demand more effort next time. If checking 3 times brought relief, the next activation will need 4 checks for the same effect. This is the vicious cycle. It isn't the work itself that creates the problem. It's the relationship to the work. It's the fact that work became the only language Mariana knows to tell her inner system, you can relax now, and her inner system learned to respond by demanding more and more of that language every time. When you fight the alarm, you don't weaken it, you feed it. Every extra review done to silence the voice teaches the voice, when I speak, you obey. Every extra hour of work driven by the feeling of not being enough confirms that the feeling has power over your actions. This doesn't mean you stop working. That's not the point. It means you have to change what motivates the work. Work done from fear of not being enough feeds the alarm. Work done from choice, from I care about doing this well, not I'm afraid of what happens if I don't, slowly begins to teach the system something different. But to reach that place, you first have to stop trying to silence the alarm by increasing the volume of effort and learn to sit with it. Mariana had never sat with the alarm. She always responded to it, and the response was always the same: more. More checking, more delivering, more effort, more proof. One Saturday afternoon, she was alone at home, no deadline, no tasks due, nothing urgent, and still there was that familiar tension in her chest, that restless energy in her hands pushing her to open her laptop, check something, do something, prove something. She stayed still. For the first time in a long time, instead of obeying the impulse, she stayed still, and she noticed the alarm, not as an enemy, as a signal. She noticed where it lived in her body, right behind the sternum, a soft pressure, like an open hand resting on her chest. She noticed her jaw was slightly clenched, her breath stuck in the upper part of her lungs, that shallow breathing of alert mode that never reaches the belly. And instead of doing anything to quiet it, she just stayed. Maybe 2 minutes, not meditating, not trying to relax, just not responding. And something very small happened. The alarm didn't disappear, but for a brief moment, a very brief moment, she was bigger than it. She was the one observing the alarm, not the one being controlled by it. That difference seems small. It isn't. Have you ever had a moment like that? It doesn't have to have been intentional. Maybe just a moment when you didn't react immediately to an inner impulse. When you hovered for a few seconds between the alarm and the response. If you have, you already know it's possible. And if you haven't, this is the first step. And it's exactly about this first step that we're going to talk now. 30 days. Not 30 days to fix everything. Not 30 days to erase the alarm or silence. the one who is never enough forever. 30 days to start teaching your system something different, to begin creating a new language between you and your body. Because that's what this is about. Language, internal communication. Mariana's nervous system spent years learning one message. When the alarm goes off, respond with more effort. 30 days won't erase that learning, but they can begin to write a new sentence next to it. And over time, the new sentence becomes clearer and the old one a little quieter. It's the small step that changes everything, not the heroic step, not the dramatic transformation. The step that almost feels ridiculous because it's so simple, done consistently, right when the alarm goes off. There are 3 movements, and I'm going to show you each one slowly. The first movement is called lower the volume. Not silence, not fight. Lower. When the alarm goes off, when the tightness in your chest appears, when your stomach contracts before a task, when the inner voice starts scanning for flaws, the first move is not to answer the content of the alarm. It's to recognize the alarm for what it is. In practice, this is physical. You stop for 30 seconds, maybe in the bathroom at work, maybe before opening your laptop, maybe sitting in your car before walking into a store. 30 seconds where your attention goes to your body before you do anything. Where is the tension right now? Jaw, shoulders, chest, stomach? Not to fix it, just to notice. Then one breath that reaches your belly, not a series of breaths. 1. Slow enough that the air reaches the lower part of your lungs, where safety breathing lives, not alert breathing. And then, quietly, out loud or in your mind, one simple sentence. The alarm is active. There is no real fire right now. This doesn't solve the problem, but it begins to create something Mariana's system never had. A distinction between the alarm and actual danger, between the signal and reality. Over time, that distinction changes everything. The second movement is called map the body's route. Once a day, not every time the alarm fires, just once a day, preferably at night, Mariana sits for 5 minutes with a piece of paper and she writes 3 lines, always 3. No more. The first line describes where the alarm lived in her body that day, not what she thought, where she felt it. Specific, physical. Pressure behind my sternum from 9 a.m. until lunch, especially before the meeting. So the second line describes the trigger. What was happening when the sensation appeared, not the interpretation, the event. I was rereading the report before sending it again. The third line, and this is the most important, describes what the alarm was trying to protect, not what it did. What it wanted. It was trying to protect me from being seen as someone who didn't give her best. 3 lines every day for 30 days. This isn't therapy, it's mapping. It's learning the terrain of your own inner system with the same attention Mariana gives to her work projects, maybe for the first time. And when you know the terrain, it stops surprising you. The third movement is called act as the one who has already arrived. Once a day, something small, very small, Mariana practices receiving, not pretending to receive, actually receiving. When someone says something positive, instead of immediately finding the flaw, she holds the sentence for 10 seconds before responding. 10 seconds where she actively tries to let the words reach her body before they pass through analysis. She doesn't have to fully believe it. She doesn't have to feel warmth yet. She just doesn't block it immediately. She lets it go 1 inch deeper than it usually does. And when she finishes something, an email, a decision, a task, and feels the urge to review one more time out of fear, she asks one simple question. Am I reviewing because this will truly improve it, or because I'm trying to quiet the alarm? If the answer is the second, she doesn't review. She sends it, and she stays with the discomfort afterward for 30 seconds, breathing into her belly, repeating, the alarm is active. There is no real fire right now. Each time she does this, the system learns something new. It learns that sending without extra checking did not create catastrophe. It learns that approval didn't disappear. It learns, very slowly, that it might be possible to exist without permanent guard. Mariana will not change in 30 days. None of us do. And anything that promises that is selling you an illusion. What changes in 30 days is direction. It's like being in a boat and turning the wheel just a few degrees. On day 1, you're almost in the same place. By day 30, you're on a different path. By day 300, you're somewhere completely new. The change in direction begins with the smallest movement. 30 seconds before responding to the alarm. 3 lines in a notebook at night. 10 seconds letting a compliment enter before pushing it away. That's it. It's not heroic. It's not dramatic. It doesn't have the grandness. The one who is never enough demands to consider something real. And that's exactly why it works. Because that part of you is waiting for you to try something big, so it can say it still isn't enough. But when you do something small, so small it barely notices, you slip underneath its defenses, and the system changes, slowly, for real. You are not broken. I need you to hear that not as a comforting phrase, but as the logical conclusion of everything we've explored here. The system Mariana carries, the one you might carry too, is not dysfunction. It's adaptive intelligence frozen in time, a part that learned the rules of an old environment and keeps applying them in a world that has already changed. The one who is never enough does not need to be destroyed. It needs to be updated. It needs to learn that the environment is different now, that the but doesn't come from outside the way it once did. That approval is not as fragile as it felt on the afternoon of that crooked drawing, and it can only learn this through the body, not through arguments. The nervous system does not change because it is convinced. It changes through repeated experience, through physical evidence collected across many small days. It's slow, and it's worth every single day. This channel exists for that. To move slowly through places that fast life has no patience for, to sit with parts of you that were forgotten, labeled, or treated like problems, when they are actually parts waiting to be updated. The shadow has a name, and when it has a name, it loses power. Mariana's name for hers is the one who is never enough. What is yours? You don't have to answer now, but if something in this video touched something specific, a sensation in your body, a scene you recognized, a memory that felt familiar, I invite you to stay with it for a few minutes before you move on to anything else. Not as a task, as care, because you made it this far. And that already says something about what you are willing to do for yourself. That by itself is already enough.